Hello students. I have seen some of my students getting confused when it comes to literary devices that are used in your English lessons. Hence this video. In this video, I'm going to explain the literary devices that have been used in your prose lessons as well as poems with examples from your chapters and some questions that are based on the CBSE format. This will help you to choose the correct option when it comes to multiple choice questions on literary devices. So first, let us look at the list of literary devices that have been used in your chapters, starting with the simplest one, and that is simile, which is a direct comparison using words like or as. The perfect example for this is like the morning birds from your chapter, Lost Spring. Metaphor is an indirect comparison where two or more things with a similar quality are compared without using like or as. Example, paper seeming boy. Personification is when an inanimate object or abstract image is given human qualities or abilities. That is personification. Example from your poem, My Mother at 66, trees sprinting. Alliteration, repetition of initial sounds in words within a line. And please remember, it's just repetition of initial sounds, not the alphabet. Example, clean clothes. Synecdoche is a part is substituted for the whole. Example being, put it all into our heads. So it's not just the heads. Basically, Franz is saying that Monsieur Hamel was trying to put everything into us. Transferred epithet, an adjective usually used to describe one thing, is transferred to another. The most appropriate example is gnarled disease from your poem, Elementary School Classroom. Litotes is an ironic statement in which an affirmative is expressed by the negative of its contrary. Example, you are not the worst. Again, this is from the chapter last lesson. Next is rhetorical question, a question asked to make a point rather than in expectation of an answer. So ideal example for this would be, will they not make them sing in German, even the pigeons, from your chapter last lesson. Irony is use of tone or exaggeration to convey a meaning opposite to what's being literally said. And here, the most appropriate example is Sahib-e-Alam. His name is ironic because it literally means Lord of the Universe when he is actually a rag picker. Onomatopoeia is, as we all know, they are sound words, creation of words that imitate natural sounds. So cooed, pigeons cooed. Symbolism, use of symbols to represent ideas or qualities. Here, example will be taken from your poem, Keeping Quiet, the man gathering salt. Pun is a play on words. A very good example is the line, few airplanes fly over Firozabad from your chapter, Lost Spring. Paradox, a statement in which a contradiction may reveal an unexpected truth. So this is from your chapter Deep Water that I am citing. All we have to fear is fear itself. Imagery, the mental impression beckoned up by a word, phrase or sentence. A good example would be young trees sprinting, merry children spilling. Oxymoron, opposite words are placed together for effect. Example, pretty ugly. Repetition, repeating certain words or phrases. Like you have far, far from the gusty waves. So far, far is repetition of the same word. Allusion is an indirect reference to a person, place or thing. Good example would be from your chapter Enemy, cardinal sin. Hyperbole is an exaggeration used for dramatic effect. This line, garbage to them is gold, is a very good example of hyperbole. Antithesis, direct opposite of someone or something else. Example, everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. Now this particular sentence is also an example of irony. Sibilance is specific type of alliteration that uses the soft consonants, creating that hissing sound. Example, school seems so strange. From your chapter last lesson, so you can hear the hissing sound. Now moving on to specific chapters and examples of literary devices from these chapters. Simile, as quiet as Sunday morning. Fish hooks, as if that was French too. Like little flags. You can see words as and like have been used to compare the two things. Metaphor, thunderclap. Language is the key to the prison. Personification, Alsace, she puts off. Synecdoche, put it all into our heads. Rhetorical question, will they make them sing in German, even the pigeons? Litotes, you are not the worst. Sibilance, school seems strange. Onomatopoeia, you have various examples. Ba, kud, ah. So these are all sound words. From Lost Spring, you have examples for metaphor. The title itself is metaphorical. So what is Lost Spring being compared to? It's basically the lost childhood of the people, of the children, that is being compared to Lost Spring. An army of barefoot boys. Garbage is their daily bread. A roof over their heads. Even shoes with a hole is a dream. The baggage of the child. These are all examples of metaphor. Simile, promises like mine. Like the morning birds. Like the son of the priest. Like the rag pickers. Like the tongs. Like a mirage. So these are all examples of simile. Hyperbole, as I said, gold in garbage dumps. Garbage to them is gold. Rag picking has acquired a skill. So these are examples of exaggeration. Transferred epithet, his bleak world. The meaning of bleak has been transferred. Irony, as we discussed, Lord of the universe. Antithesis, young boys like the son of the priest remain shoeless. Simapuri, a place on the periphery of Delhi, yet miles away from it, and it says metaphorically. Rhetorical question, can a God-given lineage even be broken? Pun, few airplanes fly over Firozabad. So make note of these lines and phrases and remember the poetic devices or the literary devices that they represent. Deep water, simile, 9 feet were like 90, like a cork, as dead weights, like a charge of electricity. Tender arms like mothers, as dog corporum. Personification, the water heard me. So you see, inanimate objects are being presented as living things. Stark terror seized me. Terror that knows no understanding. Terror that knows no control. Blackness wiped out fear and terror. Mr. Terror, very good example. Gilbert Peak returned the echo. So again, a very good example. Metaphor, curtain of life. Antithesis, the instructor was finished but I was not finished. A very important statement from the chapter. Back and forth. Paradox, all we have to fear is fear itself. Climax, He held on to the end of the rope hour after hour, day after day, week after week. Repetition, I went down, down, endlessly. Third level, you have fewer literary devices, but here they are. Simile, like a tree, like roots. Metaphor, it was a waking dream wish fulfillment. Antithesis, in and out. Rhetorical question, well, who doesn't? Have you ever been there? So these are examples from the third level. The enemy, simile, like a fowl, like flickers of rumor. Metaphor, it is only feathers and skeleton. Hyperbole, he probed with his fingers every atom of his body. It's an exaggeration. Allusion, as I already mentioned, cardinal sin. My mother at 66? Yes, you have simile here like that of a corpse as a late winter's moon. These are examples of simile. Metaphor, merry children spilling, young trees sprinting. Young trees sprinting is also an example of personification. Repetition, smile and smile and smile. Imagery, again, young trees sprinting, merry children spilling. An elementary school classroom, well, here you have many literary devices. In fact, the poem is replete with poetic devices. So repetition in the form of far, far and break or break open. Simile, like rootless weeds, like bottle bits or stones, like catacombs, as big as doom. These are all examples of simile. Metaphor, long list of metaphors. Gusty waves, paper seeming boy, rat's eyes, fog to endless night, lead sky, stars of words, cramped holes, tongues, language is the sun. So these are all examples of metaphor, children. And now if you want to understand each one, I would suggest please watch the video for this particular poem, or for that matter any other chapter. Watch the video to understand the explanation. Symbolism, civilized dome, ships and sun, window, run azure, green fields, gold sands, white and green leaves are all examples of symbolism. Imagery, and show the children. This is an example of imagery. Irony, Shakespeare's head. Metonymy is the world, its world. Transferred epithet, gnarled disease. Keeping quiet, personification. Pace of the earth can teach us. Symbolism, you have examples like fishermen, whales, man gathering salt, brothers. These are all examples of symbolism. Repetition, without rush, without engines, was with gas, was with fire. Antithesis, everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. Also the example, now we will count up to 12. Irony, green wars. Paradox, victory with no survivors. Metaphor, clean clothes. Now, let's solve some questions as per the latest CBSE format. Which option has the underlying phrase that applies the poetic device used for rat's eyes? Now, first you have to remember which literary device can you see in rat's eyes? Yes, if you have guessed metaphor, you are right. And if you apply that logic, then option C is the correct answer, because A and B are what? Similes. And D is an example of onomatopoeia. Well, Mr. Terror, what do you think you can do to me? Pick out the figure of speech used. Mr. Terror. So it's personification. Match the phrases taken from the poem My Mother at 66 with the poetic devices, then choose the correct option. Now you have to match the following. Trees sprinting. Do you remember what what did we discuss? Trees sprinting is an example of personification. Merry children spilling is metaphor. Ashen like that of a corpse, simile. Smile and smile is repetition. So as you can see, trees sprinting is personification. So 1, 3, 2, 1, 3, 4, and 4, 2. So option D. Which option has the underlying phrase that applies the poetic device used for sour cream walls? Again, have you understood which literary device is there in sour cream walls? If you've understood that, it's a very easy thing for you to choose the correct option. Option C. Again, first two are examples of simile. Third one is an example of metaphor. His dream looms like a mirage amidst the dust of streets that fills his town Firozabad, famous for its bangles. The above extract has a clear example of simile. Yes? Well, you also have alliteration, and in case they give alliteration also, and they give a complex MCQ, you will write simile and alliteration. But if they don't give alliteration as one of the examples or otherwise also, clearly it's a simile first. Okay? The most appropriate example is simile. So next is identify the figure of speech used in the sentence garbage to them is gold. We've discussed this. Option A, hyperbole. Which literary device is used in when everything seems dead later proves to be alive? Again, if you remember, we discussed this also. Which option is the correct option? Option C. Let's look at this question. Which of the following is not rightly matched? Slums as big as doom simile, slag heap metaphor, like catacombs metaphor, surely Shakespeare alliteration. So which one is not rightly matched? You have to look at the stem very carefully. Now, slums as big as doom is an example of simile. Yes. Slag heap is a metaphor. Like catacombs, is it a metaphor? No, it's a simile. And tell me, surely Shakespeare, is it alliteration? See, it's SS, surely Shakespeare, sure. So the sound is the same, alliteration. So in this case, like catacombs is not matched with metaphor. C is the correct answer. Choose the correct option out of the ones given below. This is also something like match the following. Merry children spilling is not an example of simile, so 1 cannot be the correct option. Pale as a late winter's moon again is not a metaphor, it's a simile, so 2 is also not the correct option. All I did was smile imagery, yes maybe, but merry children spilling is not personification. Young trees sprinting is an example of personification, and pale as a late winter's moon is also an example of simile. So option 4 is the correct answer. Which of the following is not an example of irony? Now this you have to be very careful. Everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. It is ironic. Dreams look like a mirage. Is it irony or something else? Yes, this is an example of simile, so it's not an example of irony. Sahib-e-Alam means Lord of Universe, yes, ironic. Food is more important for survival than identity, imagine. This is also irony. Identity should be more important. So, option B is the correct answer. Match the expressions with the literary device and give the option with correct choices. Again, it's match the following. Clearly, hyperbole. So, 1, 3. Transferred epithet is 2, 2. Repetition is 3, 1. Onomatopoeia is 4, 4. So which one is the correct answer? Option B. Yes. Thank you. So good luck. I'm sure you are going to sail through the paper very smoothly. My best wishes are always with you. Thank you.